The power of the committee so far has been that the most damning testimony comes from people who work closely for Donald Trump, who stayed to the very end, who worked in the Trump West Wing. These are not deep staters. These are not liberal Democrats. Tonight we're going to hear from Donald Trump himself. But the most damning part was in this tweet. One of the Republicans on the committee, Adam Kinzinger, tweeting out this morning, people who worked in the West Wing, the Capitol, remember that day, the Capitol is under attack. Law enforcement officers are being beaten. Windows broken, the building stormed and ransacked, chance of hang Mike Pence, chance of let's find Nancy Pelosi. This is what Donald Trump was doing.
Was the president in that private dining room the whole time that the attack on the Capitol was going on? Or did he ever go to, again, only to your knowledge, to the Oval Office, to the White House Situation Room, anywhere else?
To the best of my recollection, he was always in the dining room.
Yeah, what did they say, Mr. Meadows or the president? At all during that brief encounter that you were in the dining room? What do you recall?
I think everybody was watching the TV.
Do you know whether he was watching TV in the dining room when you talked to him on January 6th?
It's my understanding he was watching television.
When you were in the dining room in these discussions, was the violence Capitol visible on the screen on the television?
Yes. Right.
That, Melanie, is what makes it so damning. That's the White House counsel there, retired General Keith Kellogg there, Trump press secretary, very loyal Trump supporter, Kayleigh McEnany. The president was watching on television. The government of the United States was under attack. The vice president was being threatened. The president was watching on TV.
Right. We already knew that aides were going in there and telling him, so he was hearing it with his own ears. Now we know, without any doubt, that he was seeing it with his own eyes. And not only did he not act, but we've heard other testimony that he was supportive of what was going on, including the hang Mike Pence chants. Adam Kinzinger said he was gleefully watching. And I think we've heard a lot about his actions leading up to January 6th. On January 6th, we're starting to get a picture of afterwards, including January 7th, when those outtakes, that film was filmed, and he was not sorry. He was not remorseful. In fact, he wanted to continue spreading these lies. And that is consistent with how he's acted ever since.
Wanted to continue to call the people who stormed the Capitol patriots. Patriots, not rioters, not criminals, patriots.
Right. This was a show that Donald Trump produced, right? It unfolded in the way that he wanted it to happen. From that tweet he sent after that White House meeting saying, come to the Capitol, it'll be wild, to his protestations when he was in front of that crowd that they were going to march to the Capitol. So, of course, he was sitting there and watching it because those folks were called to the Capitol by him in doing what he wanted them to do. The only thing that went wrong was that it actually didn't work. They weren't able to overthrow the government. Mike Pence didn't do what Donald Trump wanted him to do. But it is a damning portrait, right, of just inaction, right? It's not only a dereliction of his duty as a president, it's a dereliction of his duty as a human, right? Someone who can stop this rampage, stop this violence from happening, and there he is sitting and watching it on television.
And you lived through this, covering the Trump White House, in that if something didn't go his way, Trump said the person's a liar, they're with the fake news, they're a Republican in name only, they're a liberal Democrat, they're the deep state. We can just show you just some of the people. These are Trump insiders: former press aide Sarah Matthews, former White House Chief of Staff's aide Cassidy Hutchinson, Matthew Pottinger, Pat Cipollone, Eric Hirschman, Derek Lyons. The list goes on and on. These are all people who worked with Donald Trump, worked in the campaign, worked with him to the end, some from the beginning. It's just impossible. They can criticize how the committee was formed. They can criticize the Democrats on the committee. That testimony is damning because it comes from people who were very loyal to Donald Trump until the end.
Absolutely. I mean, I covered the Trump White House for 4 years. I covered the NSC quite a bit. And Matthew Pottinger, Sarah Matthews, both, while they may not be the most household names, they're very respected, especially Matthew Pottinger, who was a very high-ranking senior aide, who was very involved with some of the top foreign policy. His testimony cannot just be tossed out. He cannot be painted as someone who, is just a low-level staffer. And I think he, as well as Sarah Marshall, are going to kind of go through the timeline of of January 6th, and not only show that President Trump or former President Trump was just watching TV, but all the different points that he could have done the right thing.
And all the people coming to him, begging him, pleading with him to do the right thing. We'll watch it play out tonight in prime time.